So growing up, I always heard that you should not do what you love and you should do something practical that's just going to be able to make you money, because it's really nice that you want to do your passion, but guess what? Your passion is not going to be really doing so well. So the question really is that really still apply to nowadays? And what is it we can start to do in order to figure out, should I be running after my passion or should I just be a little bit more practical? And this stemmed from a conversation that I was recently having with somebody where they started a little bit of a side hustle and they were trying to build their business. And after a year, they actually built their business up enough that they were able to quit their full-time job. And this is something that I wanted to do when I first jumped into coaching, and I'll share with you what I did in my strategy. And I don't think there's a one size fits all, but giving you the different details in terms of whether we should jump into our passion or not could be something that could really be life-changing for us. So it's very obvious that if you really enjoy the work that you do, you're never going to be working a day in your life. And yes, that's true, but even so, you're probably going to resent certain things within that. So even kids who really love athletics, for example, basketball, and they want to be making the NBA, and they end up making the NBA, so it ends up becoming a job more, and they don't necessarily love the game for the sake of the game because there's probably a lot of bureaucracy and there's a lot of other things that are going on. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You see so many times people don't realize that if I'm going to have to be a lawyer to make enough money, but I really don't want to do law, then guess what? I'm still not going to like it. So if I could try to make it work in my passion, then maybe I'd rather take that path. And that gets me to my first point, where we have to actually ask ourselves, does it practically make sense for me right now? You see, there was one time somebody reached out to me and they said I wanted to run after my passion. The only thing is that they had a family of 5 kids and their expenses were through the roof. So for them, in order to just drop everything that they were doing, even though it wasn't enough, and try to make ends meet a different way, it probably wasn't the best strategy. Can they set themselves up for a year or 2, 3 to 5 years to be able to do their passion 100%? But to recognize that if you're going to go cold turkey, it's something that you have to be strategic about. You have to be able to have the support from other people around you, and you have to make sure that you can start to support yourself as well. And this is why the younger generation honestly has a bigger advantage, because they have less expenses, they have less things that are going on in their life, and they could take more risks. So even if they mess up, guess what? They could bounce back and they're still going to be fine. So if you're looking to jump into your passion, make sure the timing is right and you are actually setting yourself up properly. And what's interesting is that people don't realize that when you're usually doing your passion, there's so many other things and skills you're going to need to be learning. So you're going to have to put time in. And the only way you're going to learn those skills is by putting more and more time in. So you can play the long game and take a little bit of lessons every single day, every single week, or you can just try to chunk it up all up front and say, I want to learn all the lessons up front. Might be a little brutal, but on the other hand, I'm going to get there so much quicker, which I believe is really possible. But we also have to realize that certain people's personalities might not fit the mold. You see, there's somebody I know who wanted to become a coach, but when it came to it and they ended up spending a lot of money getting trained and all that stuff, they just couldn't get themselves to do the sales and the marketing piece. And this is something that honestly a lot of people feel uncomfortable with when it comes to business in general. So although you want to be able to do certain things, you have to learn the skills and really understand and set the proper expectations of what is necessary in order for us to get to the places that we want to get to. It's why the best way that we can start to really move forward if you want to do your hobby is to build it up slowly. And honestly, this is something that I took on for myself. You see, when I started my real estate job, I wanted to go into coaching, and my initial plan was to actually go cold turkey, quit my job, and just jump into coaching. However, I told that to my boss, and my boss is like, well, we can let you go. So I'm like, but I don't want to be here. They're like, well, you're not allowed to quit. So they actually made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And I ended up staying there, but I ended up having a lot of time throughout my day to be able to work on my coaching practice as well. So it's actually a really big win-win. However, if I would have never told myself I wanted to become a coach, then I wouldn't have been able to get the situation that I was in. And everybody has their own stories and different ways that they can make it up. However, we all have to be able to take that initial action and see what life throws back at us. The next thing we need to recognize is that we need to start learning certain skills. And those skills might have to be in business, they might have to be in sales, it might have to be in marketing or finance, whatever it might be, but you're going to have to learn skills to get better at the thing that you're doing. And especially if you already have a full-time or part-time job, you're just not going to have enough time to invest in those skills as somebody who is just getting started or somebody who doesn't have anything else on their plate. However, just because somebody doesn't have anything on their plate doesn't mean you can't get ahead of them. You see, for me personally, there were weeks where I had the time, I just wasn't able to take things to the next level. I didn't know what I wanted to do, I didn't know the skills, I wasn't getting the right support, so I actually actually wasted a bunch of time. Now looking back at it, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z, but of course hindsight's 2020, and I realized that if I want to be able to do certain things, then I'm going to have to be able to learn the skills in order to take things to the next level. The next thing you want to ask yourself is, how big of a leap do I want to take? You see, at the end of the day, it's going to be a jump. If you're making $60,000, then your business starts making $60,000. So what we have to realize is that during that time, you're going to be making over $100,000. But if you end up quitting your main job, then you are only going to be going back to 60. You might be doing what you're excited to do and you might be more passionate about it. However, there is going to be a leap there and people are going to get scared. So you need to ask yourself, how big of a leap do I want to be taking? Do I want to take a small one and I really want to make sure that things are really set up in the right way? Or do I want to take a little bit of risk and put myself out there? I don't think there's one right or one wrong. I think it's more of a personality thing. And if we can ask ourselves, you know what, it's risky to do it, but it also might be risky not to do it. So ask yourself, how risky do you want to be in order to be able to take that jump? Because there will be a jump, but the real question is, how big is the gap going to be? And that brings me to my next point, where you want to be able to set yourself up for safety. And what I mean by that is that whether you want to be able to have another job that you might be able to fall back onto, or maybe you want to have finances in a specific job in order to allow yourself to be able to mess up and yet still be able to move forward. And this is what happened one time when somebody reached out to me and he was working in a specific job. He knew that if he would have been able to stick it out in his specific job, after 10 years, he would have been making over $1 million. However, he had these two passionate projects that he really wanted to work on. And he knew that if he would have been able to just take one more year of working for this company and look to save a bunch of money, he would have been able to invest it in his new ventures and really take a year or two off. But there's two things from this story that I love. Number one is that he set himself up and is being realistic about the timing of it. But number two is that I asked him afterwards, what happens if you invest in these new ventures, but then they don't work out? Would you be able to go back to your original job? And after thinking about it, he said he wouldn't be able to go back to his original job, but he probably could get a job in the same industry and on the same timeline. So I thought it was so interesting because so many times we think it's all or nothing, but a lot of the times we might be able to go back to a similar type of job that we were recently in. And that's why getting that experience and putting ourselves in certain positions could be so helpful. So it'll give us the advantage to be able to move forward so that if God forbid something goes wrong, we can really jump back and continue the trajectory that we want. And at least we can say we actually did it and we actually tried doing the thing that we wanted to be doing. So should you be going after your passion? The real question is, what is it you're going to start to do in order to build yourself up? Like a woman who I was speaking to the other day, she wants to be able to become an influencer, and I asked her, so what are you doing about it? And she said nothing. And I told her, if you want to start doing it, you're gonna have to start taking the action. So what action are you going to start to take in order to allow yourself to do that thing that you're passionate about? And guess what? Just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you need to monetize it. A lot of people want to be able to help other people. They don't want to have to charge for it, and that's totally fine. But if you're somebody who's looking to monetize and you're looking to take it to the next level, it could be a real amazing way to be able to get yourself to be able to move forward and take the action that you want while serving so many people and financially supporting you and your family. But if you have the time and you keep wasting it, make sure to take a look at this next video where we talk about what you can do to stop wasting that time of yours.